Hypnotic regression is not required for past life memories to emerge. Sometimes subjects in normal waking consciousness have memories that can only be attributed to past lives. Such spontaneous past life memories are scientifically more credible because they are not induced by the hypnotist's influence or the increased suggestibility of the person under hypnosis. Researchers investigating cases of spontaneous past life memories have been gathering data for a long time. But a systematic approach to reincarnation research really began with one man, Dr. Ian Stevenson. While working in the University of Virginia's Psychiatry Department in 1967, Stevenson founded the Division of Perceptual Studies to investigate cases of past life memories. Stevenson proposed that emotions, memories, and physical injuries in the form of birthmarks could be transferred from one life to another. He travelled across the world for 40 years and investigated the cases of over 3,000 children who claimed to remember past lives. Dr. Stevenson gradually got other researchers interested in investigating cases. Dr. Erlendur Haraldsson, a psychologist at the University of Iceland, became interested in past life cases in the 1970s. Dr. Antonia Mills began assisting Dr. Stevenson on cases in Northwest America. Dr. Jim B. Tucker joined Dr. Stevenson at the Department of Personality Studies. Though cases are found all over the world, it is easiest to find them in the areas with a general belief in reincarnation. Once a case has been brought to their attention, the investigators try to get as much information as possible from the families and others concerned.
Investigating the cases depends to some extent on the type of the case. In most of the cases, we have gotten to them after the main events have already taken place. So in other words, after the child has talked about a past life, has given enough details where people have identified who we call the previous personality, whose life the child seems to be remembering, then the families have met. When that's the case, then what we do is interview the child and the family and other witnesses to try to document as best we can what the child said before the families met and before the previous person was identified.
We do a lot of questioning of witnesses. It is almost more or less like a legal investigation.
Information is collected based on recollections, recognitions, birthmarks, birth defects, and any peculiar behavior the subject exhibits. In 2013, Dr. Antonio Mills investigated 3 distinct cases of spontaneous past life memories from one family in the British Columbia Islands of Haida Gwaii.
Just to meet, when I had been invited to a luncheon to meet somebody else who had talked about a previous life, that I got to meet Lila with Lee, and she had 3 cases that she spoke about. 2 of her sons are examples, and the word that they use in Haida is Hanji.
Aunt Layla, as she's fondly known in her family, talks about her elder son Chris. It's a typical example of a recognition and peculiar behavior spontaneous past life memory case.
My oldest son Chris, he's now 41. When he was a very little boy, we noticed that he was talking about things that happened before his time, and we used to drive by this house at the end of the village, and he'd want to stop and look, and he'd tell us that's where he used to live. And at the same time, he'd pretend he was blind, and we never put 2 and 2 together. And my mom realized that the person he was, a Hanji, as we say, was George Jones. And he was talking about George's wife after he had passed. But the reason he was acting blind was George Jones was blind in real life. In the house we passed, his wife was still alive, and he used to want to go visit him.
In very rare cases, a prediction of rebirth or an announcing dream has also been reported.
It's fairly common in a variety of cultures for someone in the child's family, usually its mother, to have a dream before the birth where a person comes and says they want to be born to the mom or to come live with them or something like that. And these dreams are often interpreted as a request from a previous person to come back and be reborn to the mom.
Aunt Layla's second son was a typical prediction case. Her grandfather, John Williams, appeared to her in her dreams.
Her other son, Charlie, another son, was based on dreams. Her appreciation of the case was based on dreams, which is a feature that occurs quite often in Indigenous cultures, that people will dream.
I think the most powerful one was my son Travis. When I was pregnant with him, I had very vivid dreams, who we call tinnies, like grandfathers. We call them tinnies. I was about 8.5 months pregnant, and I could feel a presence in the room. And I was staying over at my friend Pansy's place. We called each other, and I turned around. I wasn't scared anymore. I turned around, and there was this person by me, and he had the old caps that the tinnies used to wear, the checkered shirts, like the black and red or black and blue, and the wool pants that they used to wear back then. And I reached out, and my hand went right through. I could see the person, the man, but I couldn't see the eyes. And then for 2 weeks straight, I had the same dream of my tinny John Williams walking from one corner up the street, across to fields, and then up to the Seagate Hotel. And the day I gave birth to my son Travis, my dreams quit.
The confirmation that Charlie was indeed the rebirth of grandfather John Williams came when Charlie was 2 years old.
When Charlie was 2 years old, they went to her Auntie Reed's funeral. And at the funeral, her Uncle Jerry Williams felt this real fascination for this 2-year-old boy. He said, he just really wanted to know about him.
My Uncle Jerry Williams, his daughter was tapping me on the shoulder, and she said, "Auntie, Dad wants to know who that is." And I'm going, "It's Travis." And she said, "I know, but he wants to know who he is." And I realized that she meant who his hunji was. And I said, "John Williams," and turned around again because we were in church, right? But I never put two and two together that he had a strong connection to my son, because my son was his dad, like came back as his dad.
When do children start to speak about a previous life? And what exactly triggers off these memories?
So the children, the average age when they start talking about a past life is 38 months. So they're usually 2 or 3 when they start coming out with these things. Occasionally they've made gestures even before they can speak, really, that end up being connected with what they're talking about.
The manner in which children talk about the previous life can vary. Some of the children speak in a detached way, but many show great emotions as they recount events or talk about people from a previous life. Some cry regularly to go back to their old family, or exhibit other peculiar behavior. These behavioral features demonstrate that the past life claims of these children are very meaningful to them. Recognition of faces from the previous life is a key element for an investigator trying to put this puzzle together. Aunt Layla's granddaughter Rihanna recognized her son from the previous birth.
Rihanna, when she was 2 years old, she went up to this man, Francis Ingram, and an adult, and this was just a 2-year-old. She climbed up on his lap, and she put her arm around his head, and she said, "I found my baby."
And then after that, on a few more occasions, when she seen him, all she did was stare and stare and stare at him. She blew 7 kisses to him.
Rihanna started humming church hymns when she was 2.5.
She never heard hymns in my house, but she was humming Amazing Grace.
Apart from church hymns, Rihanna also liked to sing Haida songs, which she had not heard before.
They also noticed that when she was very young, she would sing Haida songs, which they didn't know. Her mother didn't know.
No, just the things my two boys did and she was doing. And like I said, when we put her on my recliner with a Haida blanket and a drum, and to sing Haida songs when you're that little and not know it is pretty amazing.
Usually, in cases of children's spontaneous past life memories, as they grow old, these memories begin to fade away. Rihanna too started to forget the Haida songs that she sang so naturally until some time back.
That ability that she especially had when she was small began to diminish a little as she got older, but she's learning them now from the external way.
An interesting feature of Rihanna's case is that in her previous birth as Lucy Frank, she had died more than 35 years before Rihanna was born.
It was quite a long period of time in that Lucy Frank died 35 to 40 years ago. So this isn't a super quick comeback. She showed all these various traits that made her family impressed that she was Lucy Frank come back.